Owen's flashlight caught her at 2 in the morning. A woman in a soaked designer coat, collapsed against the park's brick wall, clutching a baby who'd cried herself silent. Rain hammered the pavement. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared past him like she was watching her entire world dissolve in the darkness. Her wrist bore a bruise shaped like fingers. The baby's blanket was embroidered with initials he'd seen somewhere before. Something expensive. Something that didn't belong in this neighborhood where he made $3 above minimum wage. When he asked her name, she flinched like the question was a weapon. "I lost everything," she whispered, voice scraped raw. He didn't know it then, but those 3 words would cost him his job, his safety, and force him to choose between the invisible life he'd built and a truth powerful enough to destroy them both. The rain kept falling. She kept staring. And somewhere in the city, someone was looking for her. The security guard uniform hung loose on Owen's shoulders after 5 years of night shifts and skipped meals. He'd been making his rounds through Riverside Park when the storm hit, turning the jogging path into a river and the streetlights into halos of useless yellow. Most people knew to avoid this place after dark. The park bordered 3 neighborhoods that didn't talk to each other, separated by invisible lines that everyone respected and no one discussed. Owen walked those lines every night, a ghost in a gray uniform that smelled like coffee and resignation. His flashlight beam swept across empty benches and overflowing trash cans until it landed on something that didn't belong. She sat crumpled beneath the park's only covered pavilion, water streaming from the roof in sheets around her. The coat she wore probably cost more than Owen made in 6 months. Her hair was plastered to her face, dark strands clinging to pale skin. The baby in her arms couldn't have been more than 2 years old, bundled in a blanket that was losing its battle against the cold. Owen's first instinct was to call it in. His second instinct, the one that had kept him alive through deployments in places he didn't like to remember, told him to look closer. The woman wasn't just wet. She was shaking. Not from cold, from something deeper, something that lived in the bones and refused to let go. "Ma'am?" His voice came out softer than he intended. "You need help?" She didn't respond, didn't even look up. Her eyes were fixed on something past the rain, past the park, past everything Owen could see. He crouched down slowly, the way you approach wounded animals. That's when he saw the bruise, dark purple spreading across her wrist like spilled ink, the distinct pattern of fingers wrapped too tight. The baby stirred, made a small sound that wasn't quite a cry. Exhaustion, Owen recognized. He'd heard it in his own son's voice years ago, back when everything fell apart. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, keeping his hands visible. "But you can't stay here. Storm's getting worse." The woman's eyes finally moved, tracking to his face with an expression he couldn't read. Fear, maybe, or calculation. She studied his uniform, his face, the badge that said his name. Owen watched her decide whether to trust him. The moment stretched long enough that he thought she might bolt, grab her child, and run back into the rain. Instead, she spoke. "I lost everything," she whispered, and her voice sounded like it had been dragged across gravel. 3 words that landed between them with the weight of a confession. The baby shifted again, and Owen saw the embroidered letters on the blanket, VC, stitched in gold thread that caught the dim light. He'd seen those initials before. Somewhere. Owen made a decision that his supervisor would call stupid, and his son would call typical. "My apartment's 2 blocks from here," he said. "You and your baby can get dry, warm. Then we figure out what to do." The woman stared at him for another long moment. Then she nodded once. A small movement that felt like surrender. Owen helped her stand, careful not to touch the bruised wrist. She weighed almost nothing. Under the expensive coat, she was all bones and trembling. They walked through the rain without speaking, Owen holding his jacket over the baby, while water soaked through his uniform shirt. 2 blocks felt like 2 miles. Every car that passed made the woman flinch. Every siren in the distance turned her head. Whatever she was running from, it was still chasing her. The apartment building looked worse in the rain. Cracked concrete steps led to a lobby that smelled like mildew and someone's overcooked dinner. Owen lived on the 3rd floor in a 2-bedroom that his ex-wife had called temporary before it became permanent. He unlocked the door and stepped aside, watching the woman take in his life in a single glance. Mismatched furniture from thrift stores, walls that needed paint, a kitchen counter covered in his son's schoolwork and unpaid bills. Nothing worth stealing. Nothing worth seeing. She walked inside like she was entering a cathedral, careful and reverent. Her wet shoes left prints on the cheap linoleum. "Bathroom's there," Owen pointed. "Hot water works most days. I'll find you something dry to wear." He rummaged through his closet while she disappeared behind the bathroom door. The baby she'd set on his couch watched him with wide, solemn eyes. Dark hair like her mother. Same shell-shocked expression. Owen found an old sweatshirt and sweatpants, left them outside the bathroom door. The shower started running. He heard her make a sound that might have been crying or might have been relief. He heated milk in a bottle he'd bought years ago and forgotten to throw away. The baby drank it slowly, mechanically, like eating was something she'd learned to do without expecting comfort from it. 20 minutes later, the woman emerged. Owen's clothes hung on her like she was a child playing dress-up. Her hair was still wet, but combed back from her face. Without the coat and the rain, she looked younger than he'd thought. Mid-30s maybe, with the kind of bone structure that belonged in magazines. But it was her hands that held his attention. She kept flexing the bruised wrist, testing it, the way you check old wounds to see if they still hurt. "Thank you," she said, and her voice had more substance now. She stopped, swallowed, started again. "You can call me Renee." Owen knew a fake name when he heard one. He'd used enough of them himself. "Owen," he said, though she could read it on his badge. "You want to tell me what happened?" Renee's eyes dropped to the baby, who'd fallen asleep on the couch. "No," she said simply, "but I need to ask you something. Can we stay here? Just for a few days. I'll pay you." Owen shook his head. "Don't want your money. But you should call someone. Family, friends, the police." The word police made her go rigid. "I can't," she said, and the fear in her voice was raw enough to cut. "I can't call anyone. If I do—" She stopped, looked at her daughter. "Please, just a few days. Then we'll disappear. You'll never see us again." Owen thought about his son, thought about all the times he'd needed help and been too proud to ask. Thought about the bruise on her wrist and the way she flinched at car headlights. "Couch pulls out," he said. "Sheets are in the hall closet. I work nights. You don't answer the door while I'm gone. Don't use the phone. Don't—" "I know the rules," Renee interrupted. Her smile was bitter. "I've been running them through my head for days." She picked up her sleeping daughter with a gentleness that made Owen's chest hurt. "Thank you," she said again. "You don't know what this means." Owen had a feeling he was about to find out. The next morning, Owen's phone buzzed with a news alert while he was making coffee. Missing person case making headlines. Vivian Cross, tech billionaire and CEO of CrossGuard Security Systems, vanished from her downtown penthouse 4 days ago with her 2-year-old daughter Iris. Authorities treating it as a potential kidnapping. Husband Preston Harlow, investment mogul, offering a $2 million reward for information leading to their safe return. The photo showed a woman in pearls and a power suit standing next to a man who looked like he bought people for breakfast. Owen's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He looked at the sleeping woman on his couch, Renee, and then back at the photo. Same bone structure, same dark hair, same daughter. His first thought was the reward money. $2 million. He could pay off debts, move his son to a better school, stop living one paycheck from nothing. His second thought was the bruise on her wrist, the way she'd flinched when he mentioned police, the carefully chosen words, "I lost everything." Owen set down his phone and went to work. He didn't make the call. Not yet. He needed to understand what he was in the middle of before he decided which side to choose. All day at his security post, he researched Vivian Cross, tech genius who'd built her company from nothing, youngest self-made billionaire in the state, married Preston Harlow 3 years ago in a wedding that made society pages. One daughter, Iris. No scandals. No red flags. A perfect life on paper. But Owen had learned in the war that paper lied. He searched deeper, using public records and social media that people forgot existed. Found an interview from 2 years ago where Vivian talked about her revolutionary security software. "It can track anyone, anywhere," she'd said, smiling for the camera. Perfect for protecting the people you love. The article included a comment from Preston. "My wife's brilliance keeps our family safe." Owen's stomach twisted. He thought about control wrapped in the language of protection, about how easy it would be to turn surveillance into a cage, about a woman who'd created the very technology that could hunt her down. When Owen got home the next evening, Renee was in the kitchen. She'd cleaned. Not just surface-level tidying. She'd scrubbed counters, organized his disaster of a pantry, fixed the cabinet door that had been hanging crooked for months. "You didn't have to do that," he said. She shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "I'm not useless, even if—" She stopped, started again. "I needed to do something. Sitting still makes me think too much." Owen noticed she'd changed clothes, same sweatpants, but a different shirt from his closet. "You can't stay in hiding forever," he said carefully. "Eventually, someone's going to figure out where you are." Renee's laugh was sharp. "Someone? You mean Preston?" She said the name like it tasted bad. "He's probably already tracking every camera feed in the city, every cell phone ping, every credit card transaction." She turned to face Owen fully. "You know who I am. I saw it in your face this morning when you looked at your phone." Owen didn't deny it. "Vivian Cross, $2 million reward. Your husband says you were kidnapped." "My husband," Renee said, Vivian said, "is a liar." She held up her bruised wrist. "He gave me this because I suggested taking Iris to visit my mother. He gave me worse when I asked for marriage counseling. And he'll give me much worse if he finds me." Owen absorbed that. "The police work for him," Vivian cut him off. "You think a man worth $8 billion doesn't own half the city? Preston donated $5 million to the police foundation last year. The chief of police plays golf with him every Sunday." She laughed again, that same broken sound. "He built his fortune on leverage and connections. People who could help me won't, because crossing Preston Harlow is career suicide." She picked up Iris, who'd been playing quietly with a wooden spoon. "So I ran. And I'll keep running. But I needed one night where I wasn't sleeping in my car, jumping at every sound." Owen made dinner while Vivian told her story in pieces. How Preston had seemed perfect at first. Charming, successful, supportive of her work. How he'd changed after the wedding. Slowly tightening his grip, monitoring her schedule, questioning her meetings, installing his own security system in their home, using her own software against her. "I built CrossGuard to protect people," she said, staring at her cold coffee. "Preston turned it into a prison. Every device I touched, he could see. Every room had cameras. Every door logged when I entered or left. He knew where I was every second of every day." She looked up at Owen. "How do you escape someone who can see everything?" Owen's son, Noah, came home from his after-school program around 6. 8 years old with Owen's dark hair and his mother's ability to read a room. He stopped in the doorway, taking in the strange woman and baby in their apartment. "Dad? This is Renee," Owen said, "and her daughter. They're staying with us for a bit." Noah studied them both with the seriousness of a kid who'd grown up too fast. "Okay," he said simply. He dumped his backpack and walked over to Iris, crouching down to her level. "Hi," he said. "I'm Noah. You want to see my Lego set?" Iris looked at her mother for permission. Vivian nodded, and the little girl followed Noah to his room. "Your son is kind," Vivian said after they'd gone. "That's rare." She paused. "He looks like you." Owen smiled. Poor kid. They sat in silence, listening to Noah's patient voice explaining each Lego piece to Iris. Owen thought about trust and how you built it in broken pieces, about how sometimes the right thing to do was also the stupid thing. 3 days, he said. "You can stay 3 days. That gives you time to figure out next steps. Find a lawyer. Someone who can help." Vivian's eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know why you're doing this, but thank you." That night, after everyone was asleep, Owen sat at his kitchen table and made a list. Things Vivian would need: a lawyer who couldn't be bought, medical records documenting injuries, witnesses willing to testify, evidence of Preston's surveillance, a judge who'd listen. Each item felt impossible. Preston Harlow had built an empire on making impossible things happen for him. But Owen had learned something in the war. Powerful people had weak points. You just had to find them and press hard. He opened his laptop and started digging. Not into Vivian's life this time, into Preston's. The news coverage intensified on day 2. Preston held a press conference, tears streaming down his face, begging for his wife and daughter's safe return. He looked destroyed, devastated. Oscar-worthy performance. The media ate it up. "Please," Preston said, voice breaking. "If someone has them, if you're watching this, just bring them home. I can't live without them." He offered to increase the reward to $3 million, established a tip line, got the FBI involved. Owen watched the press conference on his phone during his break and felt sick, because Preston was good. Better than good. He sold the grieving husband role so well that Owen almost believed it himself. Noah saw the news coverage too. That evening, he cornered Owen in the kitchen while Vivian was putting Iris down for a nap. "Dad," he said quietly, "Renee is that lady on TV." Owen started to deflect, but Noah cut him off. "I saw her arm, the bruise. Like those pictures they showed us in school about families that need help." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Is she hiding from the man on TV? The one crying?" Owen crouched down to his son's level. "What do you think I should do?" he asked. Noah didn't hesitate. "Help her. Like you helped me when Mom left." That answer settled something in Owen's chest. He pulled his son into a hug. "You're a good kid, Noah. Don't let anyone tell you different." That night, he called in a favor from his army buddy who'd become a lawyer. Rick owed him from a bar fight that could have ended careers. "I need advice," Owen said, "about domestic violence cases involving rich people." Rick was silent for a moment. "How rich?" "Billionaire rich." Rick whistled low. "Those cases are nightmares. Resources, connections, legal teams that can bury evidence for years. You'd need bulletproof documentation, hospital records, police reports, witnesses." He paused. "You got any of that?" Owen looked at Vivian, sitting on his couch with Iris asleep in her lap, both of them existing in a space between running and captured. "Working on it," he said. Rick gave him a name, attorney named Claudia Park, who'd built her reputation going after powerful men. Won 3 impossible cases in the last 5 years. "She's expensive," Rick warned, "and she doesn't lose, which means she won't take a case unless she thinks she can win. Owen thanked him and hung up. He had a lawyer's name and no evidence. He had a woman in hiding and a man with unlimited resources hunting her. He had 3 days that were rapidly becoming 2. Not enough time. Not nearly enough. On the morning of day 3, everything changed. Owen was asleep after his night shift when pounding on the door jolted him awake. He stumbled out of bed, saw Vivian's panicked face. She'd grabbed Iris and was backing toward Noah's room. "Don't answer it," she hissed. More pounding. "Owen Carter," a male voice, authoritative. "This is Detective Morrison. We need to talk." Owen looked at Vivian. She was shaking her head, holding Iris so tight the little girl whimpered. He made a choice. Opened the door. 2 men in suits stood in the hallway. The detective showed his badge. "Mr. Carter, we're investigating the disappearance of Vivian Cross. We have reason to believe she may have been in this area." Owen kept his face neutral. "Yeah, I saw the news. Terrible situation." Detective Morrison's eyes drifted past Owen, scanning what he could see of the apartment. "Mind if we come in? Ask a few questions?" "Actually, I do," Owen said. "Working nights means I sleep days, unless you've got a warrant." The detective's smile didn't reach his eyes. "No warrant. But we're talking to everyone in the neighborhood, just covering bases." He handed Owen a card. "You see anything suspicious, you call. There's a significant reward for information." Owen took the card. "Will do." He closed the door slowly, waiting until he heard their footsteps retreat before letting out the breath he'd been holding. Vivian emerged from Noah's room, still holding Iris. "They'll be back," she said. Her voice was flat. "Preston knows I'm here. He's narrowing the search." "How?" Owen asked. She laughed bitterly. "Because I was stupid. I used your laptop last night, just for 5 minutes. To check if my mother was okay. I used a VPN, cleared the browser history, did everything right." She set Iris down. "But Preston wrote the code that my company uses. He knows every workaround, every back door, every trick." She looked at Owen with something like apology. "I led him right to you. I'm sorry. I should leave now before—" "Before what?" Owen interrupted. "Before he frames you for kidnapping? Before he hurts you worse?" He grabbed his phone, pulled up the lawyer's number Rick had given him. "We're done hiding. Time to fight." Vivian stared at him. "You don't understand what you're up against. Preston will destroy you. Your job, your reputation, your ability to see your son. He'll make you wish you'd never met me." Owen thought about Noah's words. "Help her, like you helped me when Mom left." "Maybe," he said. "But I'm done watching people get hurt because I'm too scared to get involved." He called Claudia Park, got her assistant, explained in 30 seconds that he had Vivian Cross, that she was hiding from her husband, that they needed help now. "Tell Ms. Park," Owen said, "that we have a tech billionaire who used her own security software to abuse his wife. Tell her we have evidence and testimony. Tell her this is the kind of case that ends careers or makes them legendary." The assistant put him on hold. 2 minutes later, Claudia Park's voice came through. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, Mr. Carter. Which is it?" "Both," Owen admitted. "Can you help us?" Claudia Park arrived 3 hours later with a legal team that made Owen's tiny apartment feel like a sardine can. She was 50, sharp-eyed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Owen's car. She spent 10 minutes looking at Vivian's bruises, asking questions, in a voice that was professional, but not unkind. "Medical documentation?" she asked. Vivian shook her head. "Preston's doctor did all my checkups. Man's been on his payroll for years." "Witnesses?" "He isolated me from friends. My staff signed NDAs. My own mother thinks I'm crazy because Preston showed her evidence of my instability." Vivian's voice cracked. "I have nothing but my word against his billions." Claudia nodded like she'd expected this. Preston made a mistake, she said. He reported you as kidnapped. That involves federal authorities, police reports, public records. Every statement he makes now is on record. Every interview, every press conference. She pulled out a laptop. You said he used your company's software to track you. Can you prove that? Vivian hesitated. The system logs everything, but accessing them requires admin credentials I don't have anymore. What about backdoors? Claudia pressed. You built the system. You're telling me there's no way in? Vivian's expression changed. There might be something, she said slowly. When I was developing the code, I left a debugging backdoor for emergencies. Preston doesn't know about it because I buried it in legacy code he never bothered to review. She looked at Claudia. If I could access my old development server, I could pull logs showing every time Preston used the system to track my location, read my messages, monitor my movements. Claudia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then that's what we're going to do. Because the man just spent 3 days on national television claiming his wife was kidnapped. When we prove he was using illegal surveillance to control her, that's not just abuse, that's multiple felonies. The plan came together faster than Owen expected. Claudia had connections to judges who couldn't be bought, reporters who'd been waiting for someone to challenge Preston Harlow, tech experts who could authenticate Vivian's evidence. But we need to move fast, Claudia warned. Preston's filing paperwork to have you declared mentally incompetent. He's building a case that you're a danger to yourself and Iris. Once that goes through, he can have you institutionalized, take custody, make you disappear legally. The words hung in the air like a threat. How long do we have? Vivian asked. Claudia checked her phone. Hearings in 48 hours. Owen went to work that night knowing his life was about to implode. His supervisor pulled him aside. Carter, word is you've been helping someone the police are looking for. Want to explain? Owen kept his voice level. Don't know what you're talking about. His supervisor's face hardened. I got a call from downtown, from someone important. They suggested I might want to review your employment file, look for reasons to let you go. He leaned in. I don't know what you're mixed up in, but fix it. I can't protect you if you're making enemies with people who own this city. Owen spent his shift thinking about power and how it worked. Preston Harlow could make phone calls that threatened jobs, could send police to intimidate, could use money and influence like weapons, but he'd made one critical mistake. He'd gotten comfortable, assumed his control was absolute, forgotten that surveillance worked both ways, that the software Vivian built to protect people could also expose the person using it wrong. Owen smiled in the darkness. Preston was about to learn that sometimes the people you underestimate are the ones who bring you down. The next morning, Claudia's tech team set up equipment in Owen's apartment. Vivian sat at a borrowed laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard, accessing systems she'd built, and walking through back doors only she knew existed. Got it, she said after an hour. Her voice was shaking. I'm in. The logs appeared on screen. Months of data showing Preston's access to Vivian's location, her emails, her phone calls. Timestamps matched to moments Vivian remembered. Days she'd tried to visit her mother, and Preston showed up to stop her. Meetings with friends that ended with calls from Preston minutes after they started. Doctor appointments where Preston appeared, despite never being told. This is gold, Claudia said, watching the data download. But we need more. We need to show pattern of abuse leading to your escape. Vivian pulled up another file, security footage from their home that Preston thought he'd deleted. Vivian's fingers trembled as she opened it. Owen saw flashes of arguments, Preston's hand on Vivian's throat, Iris crying in the background, a vase throne that shattered inches from Vivian's head. Stop, Owen said. We don't need to watch this. But Vivian kept going, kept clicking through files that documented her nightmare. Yes, she said quietly. We do. Because if I can't face it, how can I ask a judge to? Preston's lawyers arrived at Owen's door that afternoon with police escorts. Mr. Carter, the lead attorney said, you're harboring a fugitive. Mrs. Harlow is mentally ill and has illegally abducted her daughter. Surrender them immediately or face criminal charges. Owen stood in his doorway, phone recording every word. Vivian Cross is here voluntarily. She's retained legal counsel, and she's not going anywhere with you. The attorney's smile was cold. You're making a serious mistake. Mr. Harlow has been patient, but his patience has limits. Behind Owen, Claudia appeared. Counselor, she said pleasantly. Vivian Cross is my client. All communication goes through me. And if your client attempts to contact her again outside legal channels, I'll add harassment and witness intimidation to the list of charges we're preparing. The attorney's expression flickered. Charges? Mrs. Harlow is the victim here. She was kidnapped. She fled domestic violence, Claudia cut him off, which we can prove, with timestamps, video evidence, medical documentation we're obtaining through subpoena, and most damning, proof that your client used illegal surveillance technology to control and abuse her. She handed over a flash drive. That's a copy of what we're filing with the court tomorrow. Enjoy your reading. The attorney took it like it might explode. This is slander. Mr. Harlow will sue for defamation. Please do, Claudia said. Discovery in a defamation case would be fascinating. Really shine a light on your client's activities. That evening, Preston showed up in person. No lawyers, no police, just him and the kind of quiet fury that made air feel thick. He pushed past Owen into the apartment before anyone could stop him. Vivian stood in the kitchen, holding Iris. Preston stopped when he saw them. Vivian, he said, and his voice was almost gentle. Baby, what are you doing? You're sick. You need help. Let me take care of you. Vivian didn't move. The way you took care of me when you gave me this. She held up her bruised wrist. Or when you installed cameras in every room of our house. Or when you used my own software to track every move I made. Preston's mask slipped for just a second. Owen saw the real man underneath. Cold, calculating, dangerous. You're confused, Preston said. The stress of the company, new motherhood. You're not thinking clearly. He stepped forward. Give me Iris. She belongs with her father. Don't touch her, Vivian said. Her voice was steady now. Don't come near either of us. Preston's laugh was ugly. You think you can win this? You think some mediocre lawyer and a security guard making minimum wage can stand against me? He looked at Owen. I know everything about you, Carter. Your debts, your custody arrangement, the DUI you got 3 years ago that should have ended your security clearance. Owen felt his stomach drop. Preston continued. I can make sure you never see your son again. One phone call to child services. Questions about your judgment, your stability, your fitness as a parent. He smiled. Or you can walk away now. Forget this happened. I'll even pay you the reward money. $3 million. You'll never have to work again. The offer hung in the air. $3 million against a fight he might not win, against losing Noah. Owen looked at his son, who'd been listening from his bedroom doorway. Noah, who'd said help her, who believed his father was someone who did the right thing even when it was hard. No, Owen said. Preston's smile vanished. Excuse me. I said no. Get out of my apartment. Owen's hands were shaking, but his voice stayed level. You're not taking Vivian. You're not taking Iris. And you can threaten me all you want. But I've lived through worse than you. Preston stepped closer, invaded Owen's space. You have no idea what I can do to you. Yeah, Owen said. I do. But I also know what you did to her. And I'm not going to be another person who looked away because it was easier. Preston held his stare for 5 long seconds. Then he turned to Vivian. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "Both of you. I will take everything from you. Your company, your reputation, your daughter. And when I'm done, you'll beg me to take you back." He left without another word. The apartment felt haunted after he'd gone. Vivian sank to the floor, still holding Iris. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. Noah doesn't deserve this." Owen crouched beside her. "Maybe not," he said. "But we're in it now. So we fight. Together." The court hearing happened 26 hours later. Claudia had moved heaven and earth to get an emergency session. The judge was a woman in her 60s who'd made her name prosecuting organized crime. She listened to Preston's lawyers argue that Vivian was mentally ill, a danger to herself and her child. They presented psychiatrist reports from doctors Preston had paid for, character witnesses who testified to Vivian's erratic behavior, a carefully constructed narrative of a woman spiraling out of control. Then Claudia stood up. "Your Honor," she said, "I'd like to submit evidence." She played the security footage. The courtroom went silent. Preston's hand around Vivian's throat, his voice screaming accusations, the vase shattering, Iris crying. When it ended, Claudia continued. "These videos were taken from Mr. Harlow's own security system, a system he installed without Mrs. Cross's consent, a system he used to monitor her every movement." She pulled up the surveillance logs. "Here we see Mr. Harlow accessing his wife's location data 73 times in 1 month, her email accounts, her text messages, her phone calls." The judge's expression grew colder with each piece of evidence. "Mr. Harlow didn't report his wife missing for 4 days, Claudia said. "Why? Because he knew exactly where she was. He tracked her car until she abandoned it, monitored every security camera in the city looking for her. He only reported her kidnapped when he realized she'd gone somewhere his surveillance couldn't reach." She turned to Preston, who sat rigid in his chair. "This isn't about a sick woman who needs help. It's about a powerful man who lost control of someone he considered his property." Preston's lead attorney stood. "Your Honor, this is a clear case of manipulation. My client installed security for his family's protection. Any footage has been taken out of context." "Context?" the judge interrupted. She replayed a section showing Preston's hand around Vivian's throat. "What context makes this acceptable?" The attorney floundered. "My client was defending himself. Against his wife?" The judge's voice was ice. "A woman who weighs maybe 110 pounds? Try again, counselor." Claudia called Vivian to testify. She walked to the stand with Iris on her hip, too afraid to leave her daughter with anyone. Under oath, she described her marriage, the slow erosion of freedom, the fear that became her constant companion, the night she'd finally run. "I built crossguard security to protect people," she said. "Preston turned it into my prison. Every door in our house logged when I entered. Every window had sensors. Every device tracked me. I couldn't visit my mother without him showing up. Couldn't meet friends without him calling minutes later, accusing me of affairs." Her voice cracked. "I stopped existing as a person. I became something he owned." Preston's attorney cross-examined her. "Mrs. Harlow, isn't it true you've been under significant stress? That you've made concerning statements about harming yourself?" Vivian met his eyes. "No. But Preston told people I was suicidal. He showed my mother fabricated text messages. He convinced my doctor I was paranoid. He built a narrative that would let him have me committed if I ever tried to leave." She held up her phone, showing screenshots Claudia's team had recovered. "These are the messages Preston sent my contacts, saying I was mentally ill, that I needed help, that I might hurt Iris. All lies. All designed to isolate me so completely that even if I ran, no one would believe me. The judge called a recess. 90 minutes later, she returned with a verdict that felt like oxygen after drowning. I'm granting Mrs. Cross a temporary restraining order against Mr. Harlow. He is to have no contact with her or the minor child. I'm also ordering a full investigation into the allegations of domestic violence and illegal surveillance. She looked at Preston. Mr. Harlow, you are a man of significant resources and influence, which makes the abuse of power evidenced here even more egregious. Consider yourself on notice. Preston's face went pale. He stared at Vivian with something between hatred and disbelief. Then he walked out, his lawyers trailing behind, already on their phones doing damage control. Owen waited outside the courtroom while Vivian finished paperwork with Claudia. Noah sat beside him, swinging his legs. "We did good, right, Dad?" he asked. Owen pulled his son close. "Yeah, kiddo, we did real good." But he knew it wasn't over. Men like Preston didn't lose gracefully. They regrouped, hired better lawyers, found new ways to hurt the people who'd embarrassed them. That night, Owen's supervisor called. "You're fired, Carter. Effective immediately." No explanation, no chance to defend himself. Just gone. The next morning, Child Services showed up asking questions about Noah's living situation, about Owen's judgment, about whether an 8-year-old was safe in his care. Vivian heard about it and called Claudia. "Preston's retaliating," she said. "He's going after Owen." Claudia made phone calls, got the Child Services investigation dropped by proving it was harassment. Found Owen a better job through a client who owned a security firm. "Preston's trying to isolate you both," she explained. "Make you too afraid to keep fighting. Don't let him." But the attacks kept coming. Owen's landlord suddenly wanted him out, citing lease violations that didn't exist. His car failed inspection because of problems the mechanic couldn't quite explain. Anonymous tips to police about drug activity at his address. Owen sat in his apartment, soon to be former apartment, and felt the weight of Preston's fury. Vivian found him there, staring at an eviction notice. "This is my fault," she said. "I should have stayed hidden. Should have." "Should have what?" Owen interrupted. "Let him win? Let him keep controlling you, hurting you?" He crumpled the eviction notice. "Preston can take my job and my apartment. He can make my life hell, but he can't make me regret doing the right thing." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you willing to lose everything for someone you barely know?" Owen thought about his answer, about Noah watching to see what kind of man his father would be, about Vivian's bruised wrist and Iris's silent crying, about all the times he'd walked past suffering because getting involved seemed too hard. "Because somebody has to," he said finally. "And this time, it's me." He stood up, grabbed his phone. "Come on, we're not fighting this alone anymore." He called Rick, his army buddy, called people he'd served with, people who understood that some fights were worth having even when the odds sucked. Within 48 hours, he had lawyers volunteering time, veterans finding him jobs that Preston couldn't touch, and a support network that formed like armor around them. The legal battle stretched on for months. Preston hired investigators to dig up dirt, leaked stories to friendly media about Vivian's mental instability, tied up Crossguard's board in litigation that paralyzed the company. But Claudia fought back harder. She subpoenaed records showing Preston's pattern of abuse across multiple relationships, found ex-girlfriends willing to testify, uncovered financial crimes Preston thought he'd buried. "The more he tries to hurt you," she told Vivian, "the more evidence he gives us. Men like him can't help themselves. They have to win. And that arrogance is what destroys them." The final hearing happened on a Thursday in October, 6 months after Owen found Vivian crying in the rain. The courtroom was packed with reporters. Preston sat at his table looking gaunt, his billion-dollar confidence eroded by half a year of bad press and worse revelations. The judge reviewed everything: custody evaluations, psychiatric assessments, forensic analysis of Preston's surveillance system. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of precedent. "I'm granting Mrs. Cross full custody of the minor child. Mr. Harlow will have supervised visitation only, pending completion of anger, management, and therapy." Preston shot to his feet. "This is insane. She's unstable. Mr. Harlow," the judge cut him off. "Sit down. You used sophisticated technology to abuse your wife. You isolated her from support systems. You documented your own crimes because you believed you were untouchable. This court finds that you are a danger to Mrs. Dobidas Cross, and that any custody arrangement must prioritize the child's safety." She looked at Vivian. "You've shown tremendous courage, Mrs. Cross. I hope you use it to help others in similar situations." Outside the courthouse, Vivian stood in sunlight that felt like freedom. Iris held her hand, chattering about something Noah had shown her the day before. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Preston's lawyers issued statements about appeals, but none of it touched her. She was free. Actually, genuinely free. Owen stood back, watching. This was her moment. He'd done what he could. Time to fade back into his life. But Vivian found him in the crowd, walked over with Iris. "Thank you," she said. 2 words that meant everything. 1 year later, Owen stood in a different park. This one was called Haven Place. It occupied land Vivian had purchased in the neighborhood where Owen used to work security. A shelter for domestic violence survivors, free legal aid, job training, child care. Everything Vivian wished she'd had. She'd put Owen in charge of operations, gave him a salary that let him move Noah to a better school, buy a reliable car, stop living one crisis from collapse. "You sure about this?" Owen had asked when she offered the job. "I'm not qualified to run a nonprofit." Vivian smiled. "You're qualified to see people when they're invisible. That's all the qualification I need." The grand opening drew politicians and press and people who wanted to be photographed next to Vivian's redemption story. But Owen noticed the others, women standing at the edges, uncertain and afraid, clutching children's hands. They were the ones who mattered. The ones who'd come here desperate, the way Vivian had been desperate. The ones who needed someone to see them. Noah ran up, pulling Iris behind him. "Dad, we're going to plant the tree. Come on!" They walked to the center of the courtyard, where a young oak waited in the ground. Rain had started, soft and steady. Vivian handed Iris a small shovel. "Ready, sweetie?" Iris nodded solemnly. She patted dirt around the tree's base, with the concentration only a 3-year-old could muster. Noah helped, making it a game. Above them, rain fell the way it had that first night. But this time, it felt like washing clean, like starting over. Vivian stood next to Owen, their shoulders touching. "Thank you," she said again, "for seeing me when I was invisible." Owen shook his head. "You were never invisible. Just surrounded by someone who wanted you to think you were." He watched the children work. "You did the hard part. You ran, you fought. You survived." "We survived," Vivian corrected. She smiled, and it reached her eyes this time, genuine joy instead of performance. "We made it." Iris looked up from her digging. "Mommy, when will the tree get big?" Vivian crouched down. "Takes time, baby. You have to give it sun and water and patience. But it'll grow. Just like you." She kissed her daughter's forehead. "Just like us." Noah stepped back to admire their work. "Dad," he said, "you found them when they were invisible. Now everyone can see." Owen looked at the shelter behind them, at the windows, glowing with warm light, where women who'd lost everything were learning to rebuild. At Vivian and Iris, no longer running. At his son, who'd learned that helping people mattered more than staying safe. At the tree, small now, but growing. "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, everyone can see now." The rain kept falling. They stood in it together, 4 people who'd found each other in darkness and made something that looked like light. In the distance, thunder rolled, but here, in this small corner they'd carved from chaos, there was only the sound of rain on leaves and a child's laughter and the quiet certainty that some fights were worth having. That some nights you find someone crying in the rain and you don't walk past, you stop, you help. And sometimes, if you're lucky, everyone survives. The tree would grow. The shelter would fill with people learning to be visible again. And Owen would come to work each morning knowing he'd made the right choice. Not the easy one. Not the safe one, but the one that let him look his son in the eye and say, "Yes, we did good. We helped someone who needed it." And that invisible weight you carry from knowing you did right when it cost you something, that was worth more than any reward money. Worth more than safety or convenience or the comfortable lie of staying out of it. Some nights you find someone in the rain, and you bring them home